Hey besties, it's Jill. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being here. For those of you that are new, I am Jill. I'm a flute student at Western University in Ontario, Canada. And this video is very exciting because it is the first video of a new series that I'm doing. I've been thinking a lot about how classical music education has always been really elitist and classist and just not widely accessible, and I want to help change that. So you can join me here every week where I'm going to share something that I learned at music school that week. Whether you're just starting to learn an instrument, you've been playing for a few years as a hobby, you're a pre-professional like myself, or you just are really interested in listening to me talk about stuff. So embarrassing. This is the video series for you. Let's get into it. Welcome to what I learned at music school this week. I feel like I'm doing like a professor. Choose your character. Judge Yvonne's smarter than you. Hello class. Welcome to the first day of class. You can call me Professor Jill. I see you don't have a notebook out. I'll wait. Kindergarten teacher.
Hey everybody, welcome to the first day of class. Everybody get out your apple juice and a snack. Let's get into the first lesson.
Cool girl. Hey guys, what'd you do this weekend? Yeah. Now, this is still the classroom. I don't want to hear that. Okay, so I'm not going to be any of them, but I kind of dig the flannel, so I'm going to keep this on. For the first week of what I learned at music school this week, we are going to be talking about interleaved practicing. This is a concept that was introduced to me this week from my studio pedagogy class. Dr. Christine Carter from Memorial University in Newfoundland talked to us about her research with interleaved practicing. So this is basically a different way to practice, and research says that it can actually help you get better faster.
Okay, first I'm going to work on my scales for 30 minutes, then I'm going to work on my etudes for 20 minutes, then I'm going to move on to my repertoire. I think I'm going to work on that for like 45 minutes, and then I'll finish off with my orchestra music, and I'll practice that for about 30 minutes.
Something to know about blocked practice is that it does work. It's why many of us have been doing it for so long. However, it's been noted that the progress this way can be kind of slow. You can kind of lose focus after a while and just keep repeating and repeating, and then, oh, it sounds better, so I clearly learned that, so I'm just gonna move on. Chances are you actually haven't retained that at all. It's like when you show up to your lesson and you're like,
oh, this excerpt sounded so good yesterday, I'm gonna slay.
And then you show up and it sounds like you're sight reading and your teacher's like, you suck! Isn't that the worst? It's because your brain hasn't actually retained any of the things that you learned. You just repeated it enough times in your 20 minutes of scale to get it right, and then the next day your brain doesn't remember anything that you had done. So if you continue to do this every single day, eventually you're going to be able to play it and you're going to retain it because you've revisited it 1,000 times. And then you're going to show up to your lesson and your teacher's going to be like, whoa, you're a boss. But there is a way to do this faster. May I introduce you to interleaved practicing. So what happens basically with interleaved practicing is you choose a couple things that you want to work on in your practice session, and you alternate between them every 5, 4, 3, 2 minutes, whatever time frame that you choose. But it's very important that the things that you choose to work on are pretty different from each other. So for my practice session, I'm going to put 2 things on my stand. I'm going to put a technical passage from a Mozart concerto, and I'm going to put a slow etude. In the etude, I'm maybe going to be working on tone and legato airstream, and in the Mozart technical passage, I'm going to be working on articulations and finger coordination. So what's going to happen is I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes, and I'm going to be working along on my Mozart technical passage, and then when the 5 minutes is up, I'm going to move on to the slow etude. And then I'm going to set my timer again, and once it hits 5 minutes, I'm going to go back to the Mozart concerto, and then back to the slow etude, and back and forth for my practice session. There's something in education called a desirable difficulty, which means making things hard for yourself on purpose to force yourself to learn things. Nobody who's comfortable is actively learning something. Nobody who's comfortable is actively learning something. interleaved practicing is a desirable difficulty because you're forcing yourself to focus the entire time, and you're forcing yourself to retrieve information each time you go back and forth, because you left the Mozart concerto. Now you have to remember all the things that you had just worked on, and then, oh, now I have to remember everything that I just worked on in the slow study so that I can do it again. So you're essentially quizzing yourself every time you go back and forth, which is helping you remember things. Now, the reason that you want to choose things that are really different from each other is that mixing up material when we're studying or practicing helps us notice the similarities and differences between them, which gives us a deeper understanding of the material. So I tried out interleaved practicing this week, and I was a little bit skeptical at first, but I did interleaved practicing for 3 practice sessions this week, and then my normal blocked practicing for the rest of them. And I can say when I look back on the week, the practice sessions that I remember the most are the ones that I used interleaved practicing. And I can still remember everything that I worked on in those practice sessions, almost minute by minute. I remember exactly the trills that I fixed in my Grand Polonaise piece. I remember exactly the trills that I fixed in the Mozart, and I remember exactly how I did them because I was actively focused the whole time. Whereas my other practice sessions, eventually I lose focus and then I'm just playing stuff. I'm not really even mentally in it. I'm not mentally working. So of course I'm not retaining any of the things that I worked on. I will reiterate that blocked practice does work. It's how most of us got to this point, but it just works slower. And the science shows that interleaved practice can work faster. So give it a try. Let me know if it works for you. And I hope you learned something your first week of Jill's Music School. Thank you so much for being here for the first episode of What I Learned at Music School this week, and I will see you next week.